when, when a smart contract inside the HVM reads the Bitcoin state, e.g., UTXO, originals, etc., and then the Bitcoin chain reorgs by one or two blocks, what mechanism do Hemi nodes use to roll back or reconcile the EVM state that has already been committed?
That's a really good question. So just a little bit of background info. So the way that, if you look at just a pure Ethereum L2, like say Optimism, the way that it works is if there is an Ethereum reorg, that also causes a reorg of the L2. And for Hemi, with our Bitcoin L2 connectivity, we treat it a little differently. So the way that HVM updates Bitcoin state does not reorg the Hemi chain if there's a Bitcoin reorg. Obviously, that's reorging due to a Hemi reorg that gets published to a Bitcoin reorg. That's a separate issue. But looking at HVM state, smart contract awareness of Bitcoin data, that can reorg under the contract. So if Bitcoin experiences a reorg, then HVM state will reorg while the Hemi chain continues moving forward. So that's something that DApp developers have to take into account. So if you're building, say, a non-custodial Bitcoin asset DEX or something, you would need to choose a certain number of Bitcoin confirmations that you are going to wait for to see a transaction on Bitcoin that causes, a trade on Hemi to finalize. So you'd have to choose a confirmation value of Bitcoin that you feel comfortable with, that Bitcoin's not going to reorg beyond that distance, and then use that in your DApp. And the reason we did that is we don't want there to be a Bitcoin reorg that causes a reorg of all of this Hemi state that's unrelated to the actual Bitcoin data itself. And so it makes sense to let the DApp developers deal with that in the way that makes sense for their application, the risk their users are taking for various Bitcoin aware use cases. I will also say in there, the full node view of Bitcoin that HVM maintains runs 2 blocks behind the actual known Bitcoin consensus tip. The reason for that's twofold. One, at least it ensures there's always a 2-block barrier. So whenever an HVM app does something in response to a Bitcoin event, at a minimum, it does 2 actual Bitcoin confirmations on the main Bitcoin chain. But the other more important reason, it's a edge case / attack vector if we were to run it at tip, because a Bitcoin miner could create a block, withhold it, publish that block to HVM, and get HVM state to need that block that they're withholding. And HVM would only need the actual full block data if it's a block that it indexes in its full node view. So running it 2 blocks behind the tip means that attack's basically impossible unless you own the majority of Bitcoin hash rate, in which case tons of other stuff operates, and that's not the biggest concern anyway. So high level, it's up to the DApp developers to choose what level of Bitcoin confirmations for certain activities they're comfortable with. But at a minimum, the protocol is going to force you to wait 2 confirmations because of that full node view delay against the actual